We are live. Welcome to Doing Bits. I'm not going to do the Eshaan impression for the whole thing. Welcome to Doing Bits Live, the show where we get our favourite comedians from all over the world to come in and chat about lockdown and comedy and try out some new material. We do a disclaimer at the start of the show that some of the ideas that we will be talking about are underformed and unformed, so might come out a little bit offensive the first time, but we're going to work out how to make them not offensive anymore and funny instead. As you'll notice, Eshaan is not here. He hasn't dramatically changed his look in the past couple of days.
Lockdown is straighten that cunt rough.
So Eshaan is busy this evening. He is getting busy this evening. So we have the fantastic Aaron McCann, a former guest of Doing Bits. You might recognise him. So welcome back to the show, Aaron. How's it going?
Thank you very much, Vittorio, for that lovely intro. It's lovely. You know, we're here. We're live. Living life. Does someone have a child? That's,
the screaming child in the background.
Oh, can you hear my neighbour?
Is that your neighbour?
Sorry, if that's your neighbours, that child needs a fucking super nanny type sitting on step for fucking 8 hours.
That and so the lady with the screaming child in the background of her Zoom is the fantastic Lauren Pattison. Welcome to the show, Lauren.
Hey, hello. I love how you were like, Eshaan can't be here because he's got a girlfriend. So here are all the single comedians in lockdown who've got fuck all else to do.
It's a fucking Lonely Hearts Club podcast.
Here's 3 people who aren't getting their whole.
Come on down! Oh my god!
Eshaan, if you're listening, fuck you. That's what we're trying to say.
Loser.
You
Fucking
fucking loser.
I love Eshaan.
Oh my goodness. So we'll kick off the show. We'll get into it. Lauren, what do you miss? We're obviously in quarantine, so we're not doing gigs. We are comedians without gigs. Although you've done a semblance of a gig in a comedy club recently. But what was your last real life gig, for want of a better word?
It was Glasgow Comedy Festival.
Mm-hmm.
I did a preview of what would have been my Edinburgh show, but it was sort of just before, it was like one of the last gigs before everything got cancelled.
Mm-hmm.
And so like, I think I hadn't sold many tickets anyway because it's fucking preview in March. But then like some of those people who'd bought tickets didn't turn up because they were scared to sit in a sweaty basement for an hour.
Yeah.
So it was to like 7 people in a basement in Glasgow.
Sick.
But it was pretty nice. Like I remember coming away from it being like, this is gonna be my year. This is gonna be such a good Edinburgh show. So pleased I started the previews early. I'm so ahead of the game. And then a week later it was like, oh, your career's over. And I was like, no.
Oh, that's so brutal. That's so brutal. But then you did the stand online, which was actually in an empty stand comedy club. What did that feel like?
It was mad. So like the only time I've ever seen the stand empty is like end of the night when everybody's gone. But obviously
I thought you were
empty.
I thought you were gonna throw some real shade at a comedian there. I'm like, the only time I've ever seen the stand empty was when kicked there.
I won't say his name, but it rhymes with Eshaan Akbar.
Yeah, fuck you, Eshaan.
But it was mad. So they had like none of the chairs out or anything. You couldn't, like, all the comedians had a set place where they had to sit. Like, we couldn't sit next to each other. It was like, you know, like detention where it's like you there, you there. And you basically did your set down like the barrel of a camera. So I think there was 12 of us in the club all together. And that was like acts, crew and staff.
Mm-hmm.
But it was really good. Like, just being back on a stage was so nice. So lovely.
So it didn't feel...
I look proper giddy in all the photos.
That's so good. So it didn't feel... Because I guess that's better than the majority of like Zoom gigs. Have you done any of the like Zoom gigs from your house?
Yeah, and it's weird because like this is my like childhood bedroom. I ain't lived at home in 8 years. Suddenly I'm back at home. To the camera just before we started, so you can't see all my niece's princess fucking toys in the corner. Like, But like, it's just that odd thing of like, I know my parents are downstairs, so it's a bit like, I feel like, you know, like a 15-year-old YouTuber, or that girl who's like, we're gonna do share live, I share live.
Disgusting. Because I haven't done a Zoom gig yet. I don't know if I will. Aaron, have you haven't done any?
No, I've tried not to.
You actively tried.
Yeah.
But it's nice because like with the Zoom gig, I feel like you're just in a room, and then when it finishes, you're just back kind of by yourself, and you're like, oh right, that was the gig. Whereas with the stand,
doing them like
with the stand, you had like 12 people there.
Exactly.
At least getting some
people
kind of
were
laughs
laughing,
in the room. Do you know what I mean?
Exactly. So it was very much like, you know, like say when you're in Edinburgh or something and your mates come to your show when it's poorly attended and they're like, ha 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 ha.
That's funny.
But like all of what we're doing that to try and like hype each other up, being like, haha, you're doing great, like Tim K, you're doing great, sweetie. Like,
yeah. That's really funny. Are you actually? This has just popped into my brain because I've had disagreements with comedians about this before. See if you are having a bad night and you are bombing pretty hard, and you can hear comedians laughing at the back of the room at the fact that you're bombing. Do you like that or
then
not?
I know
like
I'm
that?
doing bad. It depends who the comedians are. If it's people who I like, then I'm like, fair fucks, like we're gonna have a drink about this after and it's gonna be fine. If it's comics I don't like, I'm like, I'm gonna glass all of you in your sleep. Like
that's so specific. Who glasses people in their sleep?
I think I got two forms of attack merged together there. I think I was going to say suffocate, and then because I'm Northern, went for glassing.
Shan't in your sleep.
Because you have
midnight and Fall Street.
You'd have to break into their house, go into their kitchen, and fucking steal them.
That's intense lucid dreaming.
Have a little drink of water on the wheel. Keep yourself.
Oh goodness me. So what do you miss about, like, even though you've had that kind of half gig, what do you miss about the real kind of like packed comedy club kind of, or just the life of like stand up?
I think I miss the people more than I miss the actual gigs. I think that was the nicest thing about doing the stand gig was actually being in a room with comics again, and it was all comics who I liked. So I was like, that's obviously a massive bonus. But I miss that when like you look at a lineup and you're like, oh, every person on this lineup I like hanging out with.
Yes.
And I miss that, like having a drink after the gig, like especially if you're gigging like, say, well, I don't live in London anymore, but like say when I lived in London, if I was gigging in like Manchester for a weekend and you look at the lineup and you're like, I'm just gonna get pissed all weekend with my friends and get paid for it. Like this is class. Like,
yeah, that's the fucking life.
Not happening.
No, it's
no,
not.
But yeah, I miss the gigs.
Yeah, when do you think I kind of feel weird asking or answering this question because everyone has an answer. If you go like, when do you think we'll be back? Everyone goes, oh, January for sure. And you're like, but what makes you think?
Yeah. See, because obviously there's been that announcement today, hasn't there? And I'm a bit like, because I know loads of places are like not going to open with social distancing. So I'm thinking maybe optimistically like October.
Yeah.
Emails from promoters float in October. But I think if they're not open until December, am I doing my first gigs back Christmas? Like Christmas gigs anyway are horrible. But I've said all along, like say if the comedy clubs open their doors on December 1st, I'm staying on furlough.
Yeah. Because Aaron, you have an interesting kind of experience of the Christmas gig where in a club in Belfast called Lavery's, you guys kind of take like ownership of the Christmas gig and make it your own staff do. So they call it the Comedians Christmas Do.
Wow.
It's like the gig that I would say it's the gig I look forward to most in the year.
Really?
Because it's like it's kind of like you're saying, it's like we take ownership of how notoriously shite the staff do gigs are.
Yeah.
And we're like, right, well, what if it's our staff do? So and it sounds like so, but it works perfectly because even if like it's the one gig in the year where I want to go on first. I don't want to fucking sit back and try and contain to be sober for this whole lineup.
Nah.
It's great crack.
What's your worst Christmas gig you've had?
We're doing one. It was like, I think I was like 3 years in, and it was like my first like Christmas corporate.
Uh-huh.
And I was like, oh fuck, this is more money than I've ever made before. I was like, this is gonna be fucking mental. I was like, tell my mum, I was like, Mum, we're about to have a Christmas. And it was like, I can't even remember the name of the company if I wanted to shout them out, but it was like, they had me on, because at the start, like, you don't want to like cause a fuss. So it's like, if they contact you for the gig and they're like, is there any kind of thing you need? And you're like, no, I'm just happy to be here. And then it's like, okay, well, we'll put you when the Pavlova's coming out. And, you know, you can fucking have background noise essentially for people.
Yeah.
And it was still to this day, I get Vietnam flashbacks to that gig. But it was alright money, so fuck it.
Yeah.
Lauren,
What
what's
about
your worst Christmas gig?
I remember doing, because the way I do now, like ever since I sort of went a bit more full time, I try and work as hard as I can. So, well, back in the days when clubs happened, I would do more gigs in September, October, and November, so I could do less at Christmas. So I'd maybe like do a couple of extra gigs a week, even if it meant working like 6 nights a week, just so I didn't have to do as many in December. I remember it was a couple of years ago. I think maybe it was the first year I had this sort of like system in place. I only had say like 3 gigs in December. It was a run of 3 gigs, and what they were paying, I was like, it's not like loads, but it's enough that I'm like, I'll take that and use what I've saved, and that'll be me Christmas done. And I bombed so hard on the first night that I put a hat on to leave so nobody would know it was me. Like, I was like, I'm leaving, because it was one of those gigs as well. You had to leave through the audience, and I was like, oh, this is like, I just bombed, like absolutely bombed. But then had to come back obviously a second night. Came back second night, smashed it, felt like the queen of fucking Tunbridge Wells. I was like, oh my god, this is amazing. So then came back on the third night with a renewed sense of confidence, which was a fucking mistake, because I died again I died again on the third night, but this time they hated us more because I'd gone on with confidence.
Yeah. Oh, there's nothing. My worst Christmas gig.
It was just such a roller coaster.
There was, Aaron, do you know, there's a pub in Belfast, and it's literally like my family home's local pub. It's called the Argyll Inn. And there was, it was the first time I'd ever played there. And it was one of the first times I think it was the first time I'd ever done 20 minutes. And it was at Christmas, because I was home for Christmas. And I went on, and my mum and dad and all of their friends were there. And then the worst crowd of people I've ever met in my whole life. There were these 3 different women at different tables who were all heckling me. I was doing an opening 20 minutes for the first time ever. Like, I'd only ever done 10 minutes before. I was just at this gig, like, just really up against the ropes, like, and my mum was over there, so I couldn't be like, you're a fucking bitch, like, you know what I mean? So, and the heckles got so bad, and it was just, like, I just wasn't equipped to deal with it. Like, I hadn't been doing comedy that long, my first ever 20 minutes, and it was going really badly. And I think the heckles started because I spotted a woman who was on her phone, and, like, I just went like, oh, lady on her phone, da 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 da. And then it just fucking spiraled. I was like, well, you have to be funny if you want me to pay attention. And I was like, oh, fuck.
Straight in.
Yeah. And then all this.
Or the jugular.
All this fucking shit. And then, like, being really disruptive. And then I was just, like, fucking flapping. Because I couldn't be too aggressive because my mum was over there. And I didn't want to look bad in front of my mum. And then it got to the point where another comedian, Teresa, was in the audience watching, like, wasn't even on the gig, like, her husband was on the gig, and she stood up while they were heckling and went, shut the fuck up, just shut the fuck up. And I was on stage like, thank you, Teresa.
Teresa's a G, man.
So that's my worst Christmas gig. And some school friends had come to that as well, and I wanted the world to swallow me up. That was really.
Oh no! I had an Edinburgh show one year. When was it? 2018, and I had a story in it about sleeping with somebody, but he was coming to see the show because we're like still friends. But I describe him not massively in detail in the show, but like, he was very, very tall. So I think I said his height in it. My ex, I'm fine, I promise, was also coming to see the show that night. So I was like, oh, like forewarn him, because it was like very tall, and I thought just instantly, if I'm that height, he's gonna look and be like, that guy's really tall as well. So I was like, yeah, he is in tonight, like whatever. They fucking sat next to each other unintentionally, and I just saw the point in the show where I gave this lad's height, and my ex's head just slowly turned to the giant of a man next to him. So it was like the lad who I'd slept with, his new girlfriend, my ex, and his entire family just formed the front row, and I was like, this is your life I did not sign up for. This is like horrific, because obviously that lad would have known that was my boyfriend, and I just saw I saw as he sat down, I saw him be like, oh god, like, but I don't think he knew I mentioned him in the show. So it was just this beautiful moment where the two of them were like, hello, nice to meet you.
Aaron, have you ever got like either people at shows or people like messaging you about material that you've done about them?
I mean, my latest hour is about my ex, like, so trying to make the 808s and harp to fucking stand up. Never like had someone message me straight out about material, but you have, haven't you?
Yeah,
I remember correctly.
I was like, who you put out there?
It was pretty stressful. Because I had like I've been in like 2 long-term relationships. I'm currently in a relationship, but then the one before was like 4 years long, from when I was 16 till I was 21. And it was like first love, like very kind of the whole thing. And then she gets mentioned in a joke that's really just a setup to another joke, where I go like, oh, my uni life was good, but it was marred by 3 negative events. Getting dumped by the same girl 3 times. Because she did break up with me 3 times over the course of the thing. And I was like, but you know what they say? Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. Dump me on Christmas Eve, you're a cunt. And, and I foolishly posted a clip that included that joke on my Instagram.
Oh.
And because that wasn't the main joke that I was trying to post, it was just the setup to get me into like a relationship-y bit about a date. I just didn't even think. I was just like, oh, I'll put that up. Like, that's the clip. And then her younger sister like liked it on Instagram, and I was like, oh, fuck.
You could just hear the can of worms.
And then she like unliked it, and I was like, oh shit, what's gonna happen? And then my ex liked it and like left it there to just like whatever. And then she eventually messaged me, and we had this whole like, it was the first time we'd spoken in like 2 years, and she was like, I've had people coming up to me on nights out asking if that joke's about me and blah blah blah, and I'm like, well, I didn't have that. I didn't know I had that much reach in Belfast. That's
You're buzzing.
I was like, that's kind of cool. But it was like a whole fun. Like, I think she's probably still annoyed at me about that. I don't think she'll be listening to this podcast, but we'll see.
That's the thing. I always try and change enough details about the person, but sometimes all it takes is one detail, and if you know who it is, you're like, oh, that's obviously.
Well, yeah. Like, I'd only been in one relationship that ended up in a breakup.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So everyone, all of our mutual friends were like, oh, that's about her.
Exactly.
Interestingly, though, I did it in the city where she went to uni, and I went to the gig and noticed some of her uni friends were like in the queue, and I was like, oh fuck, are they gonna like shout something if I do that bit? And then I did the bit, and then came off afterwards, and they were like, oh man, can we buy you a drink? Haven't seen you in ages. And I was like, oh fucking great, this is so fun. So Aaron, we did where was your last gig in the episode with Aaron. If you haven't seen the episode with Aaron, go check it out. It's on this YouTube page, or if you're listening on iTunes, check it out there. Also, if you're on YouTube right now, drop any questions or feedback you might have. If any of us are terrible people for doing material about our exes, just let us know in the YouTube live chat. So Lauren, what is your normal like process of writing and testing material kind of not like in terms of previews, but like just in terms of kind of day-to-day bits that make up your club stuff?
See, I feel like it's such a wanker answer. Like, if I was listening to this and heard myself, I'd be like, oh, you're the fucking worst. But I'm right on stage.
100%.
So I'll have like an idea. And I'm not one of these people who can sit and like, I'll watch comics like before, you know, like new material gigs. And I sat like writing in their notebooks. And I'm like, I couldn't script it, which is weird because I come from a drama background. So you think I would script it, but I can't. I'll be like, so like, say like, there's a bit that I want to work on at the minute about working in the supermarket. And I was like, right, well, that's a seed of an idea. And then when I did like the Stand Live gig, I went and I was like, I'll just riff it and see what happens. And then usually, obviously, if there was an actual crowd of people, your brain remembers the bits that they laugh at. And you go, okay, so that needs like fleshing out, that needs fleshing out. No, fuck, I laughed at that line.
Yeah.
And I sort of just would workshop it like that. And then once I've got like a little bit, and I probably shouldn't do this, but like say if I was doing like proper set on a weekend, like say at the store or the stand or wherever, like I'd have me proper club set, but then I would take out a little 2-minute bit and slot the new bit in and just see if it works. Because if it does, brilliant. If it doesn't, then I know there's like a solid bit coming to like cover it up with. But that's how I tend to write. I'm like, I drip feed it into my clubs. I might like drop like 2 minutes in, and then maybe like a couple of weeks later, I'll be like, right, well, that's a 5 now. And then suddenly before I know it, I'm like, oh, half my set is that new bit from a few weeks ago. Like, that's kind of how I just find it easier to, because I think there must be no worse than when you're like, this is a brilliant bit of stand-up. You sit and spend ages writing it, then you do it on stage and it fucking bombs. It's like, well, I'd prefer to just workshop it on stage and then, I don't know.
I'm too scared to like fully form a bit and then go on.
Yeah.
And like if I spend ages writing, like Aaron, we have a friend, Robbie, who will write a 12-minute long bit word for word and then go up and he's like, I've spoken about his process on this podcast before, where he writes out the bit word for word and puts a tick where he thinks the laughs should come, and then says it out loud. And if there's longer than 12 seconds between a tick, he'll like take out a few words and make sure it like fits. And this is all before he's ever done it on stage.
Yeah, that's intense. I wish I could be that organized. The only time I've ever like fully written a bit, and like I remember having such faith in it, like such faith. I was like, this is going to be, you know, when you're like, this is going to be my bit that if I ever went on like Apollo or something, this is going to be like my calling card routine. Die dog, it's fucking hole every time I did it, every single time. And I was like, why can't I get, but it was one of them bits as well, you know, when you're like, I remember messaging a comedian mate, I think I messaged a few about it, and I was like, I've had this really good idea, and they were like, it's brilliant, and we were like bouncing stuff off each other, and then it died every time, so I like parked it, and then for my second Edinburgh show, I was like, I'm a better comedian now. Like, it's a year down the line. Like, got a fucking Edinburgh nomination. Like, that counts for something. Yeah. Like, I know how to do Edinburgh. Turn this bit into like a proper. Tried it again, second show. Somehow it died harder the second time I did it. And I was like, what has happened here? Like, so I just, again, I clung on to it for too long. I remember it being like 2 weeks before Edinburgh, and I was still like, it'll work. So, no. But I think it was because I'd spent so much time writing it, and I was like, I can't just abandon it because I've proper put time into it. Whereas if I'd like riffed that one night on stage and it died, I'd be like, well, never coming back to that. Never saying those words in that order again.
I was waiting for the really horrible conclusion where you were like, and the fourth time it fucking killed.
I'm going to start trying it on the checkouts at work now and be like, then. They'll be like, she's really funny for a checkout girl, and I'll be like, yeah, those people in Bracknell just didn't appreciate it.
Tough crowd.
Here's a question. What is the longest you've trusted a bit for where you're like, no, I know this is funny, I'm gonna keep, like, what's the longest it's taken you to get a bit to work?
Was that me that was being asked to?
Yeah, sure.
Oh, I did that thing where I blanked out for a second and then panicked, and I was like, you know, in school when you stop listening for a second and the teacher asks you something and you're like, oh
no. Yeah.
I was listening to the kids outside. I wanted to see if I could go play after.
I totally feel your pain, because I do this thing sometimes on Zoom calls where, like, you know how the wee boxes light up yellow if you're the one talking? And I just get amazed at that, so I just watch you talk and watch the box flick about.
Do you keep getting distracted by like your lockdown face as well? So like my hair's obviously not what it was 3 months ago, and every now and then I'll just be looking at myself like, you're a fucking state Lauren Pattison. Like, and then I'll hear like, and so what's your thoughts on that? And I'm like, oh.
My mate actually posted a sketch today that's really, it's about like, do you know when you're in the dying embers of an after party and everyone's talking over each other and you're just like, what the fuck's happening? And you're fucked as well, and you're just like, oh my god. And then someone goes, do you know what I mean? And you go, yeah, definitely. And they're like, you'd shag your sister? And they're just
that bit I was on about is probably the bit I've trusted the longest, just being so determined. But I think as well, when you've got other comics backing you, being like, yeah, it really works, just stick with it. And you're like, okay, I will. But then I'm like, are they just fucking with this? And being like, God, that's so dog shit. Let's see how long we can make Lauren do that bit for.
That's
like,
that's my thoughts with everything. Literally every single person that likes any Instagram post I ever do, I'm like, oh, they're taking the piss out of me. That's fucking awful. Like,
yeah.
That's what I do. Every like I've ever give you.
Because I like, Aaron, have you ever had anything like that? Because I heard like stuff like Chris Rock with his like kind of hallmark, like the N-word bit, apparently took 2 years to get to work.
God.
And he was just like, no, I know this is funny. I know it's difficult, but I know that this is funny. Aaron, have you ever had any that you're like, I've just like trusted?
I think I have the opposite problem where I have no patience. So like if some land the second I think of it, then I'm like, well, that was shite, waste of time, and I leave it, and then it come back to me like a year later, and I'm like, let's try this again. Similar to what you're saying, where you're like, oh yeah, I'm a better comedian now, so let's try it out again. But not that I can think of. No,
I had one that that is now my closer generally for most sets that I do. That I tried at like 4 open mics and it bombed every time. And I was like, oh, fuck this. There's nothing in this. I thought it was really funny, but there's nothing in this. And then like 6 months later, I was at Angel Comedy Club doing a new material show. And it was the first time when James from the club had been like you're fine here, like do new stuff. You don't have to try and like smash it or whatever. And I was like, oh, fuck, I don't have any new stuff. So I like went into my notebook and was like, what the fuck have I like... And I was like, I'm going to try that here. And it was like great because it was a really good audience. But because I tried it at these like shitty kind of open mics with a lot of comedians in the room, it just hadn't like, it hadn't had, there's something about the material that works at open mics isn't the same material that works in an actual club. So it's hard to fucking trust that.
But this is the thing, when sometimes comics are like, sorry, I keep playing with this hair clip and then keep dropping it and frightening myself. When comics are like, oh, you know, it's never the audience's fault, like it's always the material or whatever. Nah, because I remember when I first moved to London, going and doing this, like, in fact, I don't think the gig's even there anymore, but it was a really like bad open mic, but I didn't know it was a bad open mic. One of those ones where you go there and literally the only other people in the audience were other acts. And I think it was all like sort of like open mic boys. Not that there's anything wrong with open mic boys, but like I was being sarky and I genuinely wasn't. Sheer contempt in my voice. I was sort of like, I think I might have been building up to my day semi-pro, going into like a pro comic, doing like pro weekend and that. But I was like, right, I'll go and try some new bits for my Edinburgh stuff at this open mic, and every single bit just got I was watching these other acts just stare at us in silence, and knowing you're like, it can't all be shit. It cannot all, because it wasn't like the first time I'd done it all as well. And I was like, this is definitely sort of worked at other gigs. So then like I tried to like banger bits that I knew were bits that I was doing in like proper sets, and they played to silence, and then I just went, well, now I know it's fucking used because those bits normally claps, and just was like, right, I'm done. Nah, I'm prepared to give you the benefit of the doubt that maybe my new bits weren't good. I was like, but you've now not laughed at stuff that I know works on weekends. And I was just like, yeah, I'm done. I'm going. There's no point trying out material if nobody's going to give you anything. Like, absolutely not.
It's a difficult thing to work out as well, where there's this idea of like a club comic, and then there are these comedians that have like cult followings. And I think it was Gary Gulman said like, to be able to resonate with specific people enough to like, for them to latch onto you and want to come back to your shows, you have to be willing to miss some people. So it's when you trust and go,
Yeah.
this is a room full of people who I'm missing, but that's okay, versus
Exactly.
just smashing lowest common denominator. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, definitely. That's the one thing I found lush about when I started doing sort of like our shows, is you find your audience, and then suddenly like that fear just goes a bit, because you're like, well, people are choosing to come see me, just me. So like everything feels that bit more forgiving. Like I've definitely had shows in Edinburgh where I've thought they were very kind. Like I didn't either deliver that the best, or like I stumbled over something or whatever, and they're still like, ah, ha, 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 ha. And I'm like, oh, you're so kind, because that was not worthy of your laughter. But
yeah. And it is
Thank
difficult
you.
as well, because people make it out to be very, very simple, that like the only marker of good stand-up comedy is the amount of laughs in the room. And I think that's true to a level. But then there's objectively stuff where, like, if that was the only thing that mattered, like, we would all just do, like, Patrice O'Neill's material that the audience won't recognize but will fucking smash.
Yeah.
So there is some kind of, like, artistry to it. And also, like there's something else that you need to be doing rather than just making people laugh. And I don't quite know how to put my finger on it.
I love comics who can... So I think Daniel Sloss is a really good example of this. He'll make a tension, and like you can feel it in the room, and you're just like, how? And you'll look and like say he'll be on like 59 minutes of an hour show, and you're like, how he's just made us laugh for an hour, and now there's this weird tension, and how is he going to pull this back round? And then he'll just like completely like pull the rug back from under you, and you're all laughing again. And to me, that's the kind of comedy I like, where my arsehole's gone tight for a second, and I'm like, this seems like a dark bit to like end on or whatever. Where's the punchline going to come? And then when they can just like pop that tension, I love stuff. I think that's proper like artistry.
I love
so
that too.
good.
Yeah, I think there's like who are people? So you said like Daniel Sloss. Aaron, do you have anyone where you think you kind of have like an element of trust in them going really deep into a topic, and you're like, I don't know how, but I think you're gonna get out of this?
Yeah, Sloss is an example I'd use too, because like both the last two shows I want to say he's done, Dark and X, where it was like they both tackle different things, and as you say, like in the last 10 minutes of the show, there is like that, like literally you could hear a pin drop in the whole room.
Yeah,
and
is Doc the one where he talked about his sister?
Yes,
Doc. Yeah, I can remember the whole room just being like, ugh, and even I was like, oh, how is he gonna? Well, help.
Yeah, he's sort of created his own like style almost, where it's like it's two shows now in a row where it's kind of been like, you know, tackling a theme or subject that at the start he does like standard stand-up, kind of just like different topics, then leans into one topic, and then gets to a really serious serious place about it, and then at the very end brings you back in for more kind of just like standard stand-up, and you're like, fucking hell, that's like very methodical. It's very enjoyable. I love that stuff too.
There's something. So someone in the YouTube live comments has said Hannah Gadsby is so good at that.
Yes, Nanette.
So I
remember Nanette was my debut year, and I couldn't see it because it clashed. And I remember like there was a woman who was like sort of sharing my flat for a little bit for like half the festival. She came back one day and she was just like in tears, and I was like, how can a show make you cry and be funny? Says the girl who was doing a show that was making fucking men cry every day over here, a little Miss Breakup show. But like not to the like the sort of impact I was seeing from Hannah's, and then I went to see it at Soho in London, and that was like proper like sucker punch. And I know it split people, but I'm very much in the camp of it is comedy. It made us laugh for 40 minutes, and then it punched us in the dick, and then I left there thinking about shit. And I think that's good when comedy should first and foremost make you laugh, but it can make you think about your place in the world and how you want the world to be. That's fucking clever. That's good, man.
I think there's almost like there's meaning been applied and words almost put in Hannah Gadsby's mouth, where people are like, Hannah Gadsby says comedy's dead, and it's like she didn't actually say that. Like she didn't, like, do you know what I mean? It's like, I think it's created this culture of, and I think this is a negative thing that's come from it, but it's not because of Hannah Gadsby, it's because how people have kind of taken it and spun it, where people think that
Mm-hmm.
that thing that Sloss does, where he goes really deep into a topic and then flips it out with a big laugh.
Yeah.
People think that devalues the point that he just made in a
Mm-hmm.
way. Do you know what I mean? And I think there's this perception at the minute that making a joke about a topic inherently devalues that topic, but I don't think that's the case.
No.
Nah.
And it's
Definitely not.
that kind of comes to the next question that we normally ask is, Lauren, is there any topics that you think are just like first of all that like no one should joke about, or personally that like you wouldn't joke about?
I don't think there's anything that is like completely universally off limit. I think if it's your experience and if it's something that's gone on in your life, why the fuck shouldn't you be able to make jokes? So like, say if I was like really ill and then wanted to write jokes about being ill, I wouldn't dare have anyone say to me like, oh, you should, or like say me, I know it's not as like seriously ill, but like my skin. So I've got like psoriasis, and I used to make jokes about having psoriasis. Because I'd never heard anyone make jokes about having like stuff wrong with their skin, and obviously it's so visible when I'm on stage and stuff. And I'm like, well, people are probably looking at it anyway. Now, not that anyone ever told us I shouldn't make jokes about my skin, but then I would hear other comics using like eczema and psoriasis as like a punchline for like, ew, gross. Like,
yes.
You can probably think of examples of people, and when they'll sort of be using like a caricature in their stand-up of somebody who's like meant to be unattractive or unappealing, and they'll always mention that they've got eczema, and I don't like, not that I'm offended before anyone's like, ooh, you fucking snowflake. I know I'm flaky, my skin is literally flaky. But like, it's not that it offends us, but it's just like, why do you have to use it as like, why is the only time I hear people talking about stuff about like people's skin on stage like a punchline to being gross? I'm like, nah, like, you're better than that. And then I quite liked sort of talking about it. But yeah, if I was like super seriously ill, again, I think it would be fine for me to make jokes about it, but maybe I'd find it, if somebody else who wasn't ill was using that illness as a punchline, I'd be like, really? Like, yeah. But I don't know. I think as long as you can make it funny, you should go for it. But I also think as a comic, it's your responsibility to consider how is it my place to talk about this? Yeah. I think it's always very much so. I got a dead leg. Sorry. That was it.
Imagine apologizing for that. And normally at this point in the show, we go into some. We've got a question on the YouTube. Have any of you had to deal with an upset audience member who approached you after a show about something you've said, and how did you deal with it?
Have you heard about the one who walked out during my show?
No.
Oh,
this is so it was the day of the nominations in Edinburgh had been announced. So it had been announced I'd been nominated for the newcomer, and everybody says the day you get the announcement for the Edinburgh Award, if your show hasn't already sold out, you're going to have a shit show, because people buy tickets off the back of the fact you've been nominated. They don't necessarily want to see you. Not to be little Billy braggy bollocks over here, but my show had already sold out, so I was like, well, it's going to be fine. It's going to be fine, because the people who've bought tickets for this are people who wanted to see me 2 weeks ago and were already on board with the hype sort of thing, so it's going to be fine. I was wrong. I had a joke about me nephew needing a hearing aid, which is true. He needs a hearing aid, and again, I think that's okay for me to make jokes about, because he's my family member. All my family are fine with it, like, and they're jokes said with love. They're not like malicious.
Yeah, I thought you were going to be like, it's fine because he's a fucking dickhead.
Yeah. But I deliberately, like, I set up all the jokes before I tell them about saying how much I love him and how I worship the ground he walks on, just so people know these jokes are. We all joke about our family, of course we do. So I had a joke about him needing a hearing aid and like not being able to hear properly, and this woman just gets up and starts to leave. And I went, oh, is everything like okay? She went, my son's deaf. I'm incredibly offended. And she just walked out. But the whole sort of point of that joke was about people taking offence on other people's behalf when the joke's not about them. That's what the joke was about. And sure enough, there's a woman. I think I even prefaced it by being like, this joke is about my nephew. It's not about like it's about one person. It's about one specific person. So that's what that whole bit was about. And I just stood there like completely floored, because I was like, she's literally proved my point. She's heard me making jokes about someone who can't hear properly, and she's gone, well, that affects me directly. She's obviously joking about everybody. So she storms out, and I stood there and I felt, because I was where I had the panel in as well, watching us, and I was like, oh my God. And I said, right, I went, I think she's just proved me point, but what I want to say is if there's anybody else who thinks that joke was too far, or if you're offended, leave now, total amnesty. I went, I'd rather you leave now than sit through another 40 minutes of this and not enjoy yourself. I was like, I want like me to have a good time. So if you're not leaving, if you're not happy, and I think our friend like got up and sort of followed, and I went, it's fine, absolutely fine. I went, but like, this is it. I went, doors are getting locked after this. So if you're not happy, like, whatever.
Doors are getting locked.
Everybody else said, yeah, batten down the hatches, lads. But like, everyone else said they were having, luckily I was having a really nice show. Other than that, like, everyone was dead on board. I got maybe like 2 minutes on, and clearly there'd been a third friend who I hadn't seen who'd wanted to stay, then had obviously felt guilty about staying. So she got up and left, but I was fuming. Like, I'd been prepared to have an amnesty, but then I was fuming because I was like, well, now you fucking interrupted us again. This is why I said, if you're not happy, go now, because then I can just continue. So I just got back into the flow of it. So as this poor girl's leaving, I was like, I gave you an amnesty. What are you doing? And I'm stood there like so angry, but also like, I think because I'm only like 5'3", like I'm like a little toothpick. So I know it's not aggressive when I start going on. It just looks like a little toddler having a wobbler. So I just let her leave, and I was like, I gave you an amnesty. And as soon as the door shut, I went, right, there's 47 of us left in here. I'm going to ask every single one of you individually if you're having a good time. And I went round all the other 47 people. And then I clocked Don from the comedy store, like the boss of the comedy store. He was in, but I didn't clock him until I was like halfway through my head count. So I was like, hello, Don. I would love a weekend at your club. But it was hot. It was the first time I'd ever had anyone walk up because they were offended. And it was just a really a moment where I just thought, I don't quite know what to do, because she's completely proved me joke, but also I don't want to kick off at her too much for being upset, because I don't want to look a bitch. I don't want to look a dick. But it turned out all right in the end. It's that moment when you just watch someone be like, no, I'm not prepared to sit. And as well, it was a relatively tame joke. That was your limit. But as well, before she walked out, her and her friends had been talking right the way through. Because I remember my agent was in that day, and she said she'd heard them talking from the beginning. So what we think is she wasn't listening.
Yeah.
She was maybe chatting to her mate. She had completely missed the point of the joke and the context of the joke, and she heard, she's mocking Luke on here, and then like walked out. And I was like,
always the way.
That happened. That happened with a friend
who are
of
like,
mine.
I got kicked out for laughing. I'm like, no, you didn't get kicked out for laughing. You got kicked out for fucking talking. You jeb-end.
Yeah, that happened to a friend of mine.
Did you say jeb-end?
Yeah.
I'm still in that.
But wait, that happened. It happened in the most bizarre way to a friend of mine in Aaron's, where it was like, and I won't say it, basically one Northern Irish comedian had done a joke and the joke is Arlene Foster looks like someone who punches autistic kids, and and the same thing happened. Someone just heard, like, wasn't paying attention and heard autistic kids, and like stormed out, being like, you can't make jokes about autistic kids.
Yeah.
But then it went all around Facebook, and they confused the gig for another Northern Irish comedian. So there was like, they were trying to cancel this one guy for a joke that he didn't make, that it wasn't even the joke of the other guy.
Fuck's sake.
Aaron, have you ever had any walkouts?
Never any walkouts, nah. Which is like, I don't know. I try to make sure I advertise as much as possible that, you know, this might be the show where, like, the lady that was at your show, Lauren, she for sure would have walked out of mine.
Yeah.
Try and make sure that none of those types of people come in general. But you get the odd one, like, that'll sit there. They won't walk out, but they'll, like, maybe say something after the gig or something like that.
Yes.
You know? I
It's
enjoy
a bit like
XYZ, but the bit that relates to me in some way, that's the one I don't like.
That's what gets me. When they will laugh, you might about like death, cancer, like whatever. You'll make jokes about everything, and they'll sit and go ha 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 ha, and then the one that's sort of relatively close to their experience, they're like, oh no, and I'm like, nah, you cannot laugh at absolutely everything, and then be like, well, actually no, this particular one was a little bit too close to home for me. I'm like, nah, it's all or nothing. It's like what I say, I don't get offended when I hear people making jokes that are maybe having like like at my expense of having dodgy skin. I'm not offended by them. I'm just like, oh, well, I didn't like that one, but I would never like walk out. Like, no way.
Yeah, I think I've only ever had one walkout. It was at the Glasgow stand, and it wasn't like because of material I'd done. It was like, I do a joke about bonfire night, and I like reference. I was like, we don't have bonfire night in Belfast. And this woman went, "You're not allowed fireworks!" And I was like, "Whoa!" And then I was just like, "Spot the Hun," and then just like fucking moved on after the rapturous applause from all the Catholics. And then further down the line, I like finished the joke, did the punchline, and she went, "Oh no, you can't say that." And I just went, I was like, I was fed up of it. She'd heckled a bunch of acts before me, so like the audience were fed like. And I remember talking to my friend John about this, about how you need to give the heckler like a little bit of rope so that they can almost hang themselves, because you need
exactly.
Like, we could walk into a comedy club and go, get rid of them, and them, because you know before the show starts who's going to be the fucking problem. But you have to let everyone else realize that before you get like aggressive on stage. So she said, "Oh no, you can't say that," and I went, "Hey, shut the fuck up," and then everyone clapped, and then her husband walks out and she sat there like all grumpy, and then they don't talk to each other for the rest of the night. So I think I caused a breakup.
I once pissed off a load of stags. I was doing my trial from Jongleurs. Oh, so you can already smell what kind of gig it was, can't you? So bear in mind, I wasn't getting paid for this because it was a trial spot. It would have been maybe like 20. I've just dropped my hair clip that I was playing with.
This is like a real life version of, you know, whenever you're sleeping and you fall in your dream, and then that's like you in the haircut.
All these like live things I'm doing from my room are just such an insight into what it's actually like to just spend any fucking time with me at all. I was doing a Zoom gig the other day, and just halfway through I went, "A dog's outside," and everyone was like, be professional, Lauren. But I was doing this trial, and like I think it was all stags. Like there was maybe like 3 women in the whole audience. There was like 5 or 6 stag parties. And I knew again, like we were saying before, I was like, this is a room of big old misses for me. Like it's not going to be my gig. Like whatever, I'm just going to have to get through it. But I kind of had a couple of lines prepared, just in case you do get sexually harassed at work. It's always best to have some things ready to go. And there was like a footballer at the time who'd been caught like either perving on a 15-year-old or dating something like that. And I was like, right, well, they're stags, they'll be into football, so I'll make some, if they say anything about me, I'll make some kind of like quip about that. And sure enough, like I hadn't even got to the mic, and they were like, "Well, get your tits out." And I was like, "Oh, did you not learn anything from," and I can't remember his name
Adam
now,
Johnson.
whatever his name was. Adam Johnson, that was it. I was like, "Did you not learn anything from Adam Johnson? You might want to check my ID first," which I thought was a fucking brilliant line.
Fucking good.
But
It's
like,
very good.
Very like quick, because like I looked very young at the time, but you could tell they all kind of laughed, but then the stag or whoever it was who sort of shouted didn't laugh, so they all did that boy thing of being like, "Well, no, no, okay, the leader has spoken, we cannot laugh.
It's his special day."
Yeah, and I just stood there and I played pretty much silence throughout the whole thing, but I left feeling so smug because I was like, "Yous are all now gonna go home raging that a fucking 21-year-old girl knocked you on your ass." Like, oh god.
That's so
Can we
funny.
just talk to like stags that they have their stag night in a comedy club? Like, I would honestly, if I was the stag and my mate's like, "Right, we're gonna organize a mad piss up for you," and we ended up going to fucking like, I don't know, hot water or something, I'd be like, "I'm gonna jump in the fucking river."
There's a funny. I had a couple of mates before I started stand up who told me about a stag party where, and I'm sure this happens a lot, they secretly signed him up to Red Raw at the Glasgow stand. Like the stag, and they were like, "Okay, you're doing 10 minutes," and he'd never done stand up before in his entire life. And they were like, "You're up doing 10 minutes," so they all just sat in the audience and just wet themselves laughing at this guy trying to do stand up, which I enjoy because it is them realizing that it's really fucking difficult.
Yeah.
And then the other thing I was going to say, Adam Johnson, hilariously, the best headline ever in Leeds was Premier League star coming to Leeds, and it was when they decided what prison he was going to go to. I'm just like, that's how you sell newspapers. Like, that's fucking, that's so clever. Normally at this point we go into like, oh, do you have any bits you want to work on? But what I would love to do is that bit that you are like kind of adamant works. Do you want to talk through it and see if we can see what we can do with it?
Right. Give us a second, because I'm in my room. I bet you, I was going to take my headphones out and realise I wouldn't be able to hear you. I bet you I've got my notebook in the drawer, right? Just like fill time for a second or something.
Cool,
and don't bitch about it, because I'm taking my headphones out.
Aaron, what do you really think of her?
I think jab end is possibly one of the greatest turns of phrases I've ever heard, and I'll be implemented into my daily life.
Are we slagging this off?
No.
Right. This was the notebook I used when I wrote my debut, so it might be in here somewhere. Oh, you can see like how I write my shows. Look, all colour coordinated.
That's so girl. That looks like every girl's like revision notes.
Yeah, I would say it looks like GCSE. Like,
of course I have flashcards.
Fucking bite size.
And on this one, I spelt mouse wrong, so it says moose. That's actually, it was your friend, Aaron, wasn't it? When I had a mouse in my room in Edinburgh, and I was freaking out because I'm a big old baby. And I'd met your mate like once for 2 minutes in Loughborough, and it was 2 a.m. and I was having a breakdown on Twitter because there was a mouse in my room, and he said I could come sleep in his kitchen. What is this?
Wait, hang on. I actually forgot about that. That might have been Dave.
It wasn't
Elliot?
Dave.
Because that was the flat I stayed at too, but me and him shared one bed.
You do both 20 stone. How the fuck would you share?
It's like two absolute boulders sleeping beside each other.
That must have been like Shrek and Fiona. That's fucking
right. I can't find it in amongst all this shit, but I can remember it was about it was a bit about how, you know, I cut my own head off again. Sorry.
I'm
trying to like right, I'm trying to like, because I don't know who's watching, because you fucking invited everybody who likes all my pictures. And I just fell over. And I just put like a play suit on, and now I'm scared every time I'm going to move that someone's going to like see in my tunnel. Right. I'm gonna back up. That's why I've had a pillow over my knee for the whole thing, like I'm a 14-year-old boy with a semi. So it's a bit about having little boobs and how people say, like, to try and make you feel better, say any more than a handful's a waste. And I was like, that's fucking bullshit. Because if someone went like, oh, Lauren, here's a handful of chocolate, or he has like a bucket of chocolate, I'm not going to take the fucking handful. I'm not in the slightest. And then I wrote like this follow-up bit about like how like finding the right person in life is like finding the right bra, and it was like all these like sort of metaphors about like tits and love. Sorry, I'm holding you up with a bottle of deodorant, by the way. That's how professional I am. It's a real insight into my brain. Yeah, like how finding love is like finding the right bra. So it's all these things about like like you, I can't remember, it was all fucking dog shit now, but like all kind of weird like metaphors. And then I did one about like how I didn't want to leave the lads out, and like finding love for lads, like finding the right pair of pants, like you don't want it to grip your balls too tight, like all that kind of thing. And it was quite like a fun little bit, but it just never, I don't know if maybe not enough people wore bras, or I don't know. Maybe as soon as I mentioned tits, people were like, oh, can she stop talking about her tits, please?
I think there is a section of society of like guys who'll be like, oh, I don't know if I can laugh at this. Just like pure fake.
Well, that's why, like, originally I just had the bit about like the bra and the boobs and stuff, and then I was like, that's it, I'm alienating the men. So I wrote the follow-up bit about like finding loves, I find the right pair of boxers, and comparing like love to your dick and stuff. And I was like, then I'm covering all bases. But No, it never worked. I think for my second show, I pretended it was a poem that I'd written. And if there's one thing that taught is it's poetry and stand-up, don't mix. I love how though, like, the bit of material wasn't working. I was like, how can I possibly make this better? Poetry. Let's
turn this into a fucking
Lauren.
slam event.
Exactly. Let's write a haiku.
Well, what do you look for in a bra that well, just like not even thinking about whether it applies to men?
But I think the punchline was like, ultimately, you just want something that like holds your titties and never lets go, something, or holds your titties and supports you through life. That's what you want. So that was sort of like the punchline that it built up to. But yeah, I still think there's something in it. I still do.
Is there anything about them wearing a wire where you can be like? Like, my ideal man doesn't have like, he's not a fucking spy. Like, he doesn't have a wire.
It made us think as well as like, like when you first start someone, and as well it's all like your fancy underwear, so it'll be like your boxers that your mum got you for Christmas that are like 20 quid a pair or whatever. And for girls, it's like, I'm gonna wear my underwear that matches. Mm-hmm. And after like 6 weeks or something, you're like, everything is beige.
Yeah, is there something about like those comparisons where like for a one night stand, you want someone a bit fancy, a bit uncomfortable, but like looks good. Do you know what I mean? But for a long
it might leave a rash, but you had a good night.
Yeah. So. But then for long term, you just want something a bit more boring, a bit more comfortable, and just like makes you feel good. You're happy watching Netflix and eating fucking takeaway with. Do you know what I mean?
And if it was like an Edinburgh show, I'd definitely give it a twee little ending, like, and it might not match, but you know it feels right.
You could do a more like aggressive end where you're like really
in your sleep.
I was gonna say that like is there like a way to flip it where in reality to sit in the house and watch Netflix and you don't fucking want a bra at all? So you're just like, I don't even fucking want a man there. Like, I don't fucking want that. Do you know what I mean?
That's very on-brand feminism. Yeah.
And then you close the show and you play Destiny's Child.
Yeah, while burning a bra. Which will take about 4 seconds because my bras are fucking tiny.
Oh, that's funny. I reckon we have time. Do you have any bits that you're thinking of at the minute that you might have more immediate access to in your brain that we could work through?
Yes, because I've started working at the supermarket. I was like, but that's the annoying thing. Everyone at work's like, bet you get lots of material, and I'm like, shut up.
Yeah.
But like, when I went on the tills, because I started off in the office, and I went on the tills, and know how like if vegetables, like loose veg, doesn't have a barcode on it, so you'll find it on the till.
Yeah.
I don't want to be a northern stereotype, but I've learned very quickly I don't know what a lot of fucking vegetables are. Like, because I'll have it in my hand and I'll look on the till and I'm like, carrot?
That's so funny.
Is it a carrot? And then my mate, who's one of the people who you fucking followed with this podcast, and he was like, why is your podcast trying to add us on Instagram? And I was like, support me. But he told me the other day that parsnips were like, you know how like a raisin is that a dead grape or an old grape?
Like a dried grape. Yeah.
He told me, it sounds so thick when I promise I'm clever. He told me that a carrot starts as a parsnip and then it gets its colour and turns into a carrot.
What?
And I fully believed him. And I was like, that makes sense. And he said he was dying for someone to come through the till with, because he knows what I'm like as well, that I share everything in my brain. And he was like, I can't wait for you to like serve someone who's got parsnips and for you to be like, you know, that's a baby carrot. It's just a carrot that hasn't got its colour yet.
Aaron, I've never seen you more angry in my whole entire life.
I was like, what?
Well, they're the same shape, aren't they?
That's hilarious.
True.
That's so
I was
funny.
also scanning courgettes through as aubergines for a long time. Like, I've never had a courgette.
Okay,
and I was
that
like-
one I get.
Yeah.
I don't know what the fuck is that
Exactly.
one.
And I was looking on the till and nothing looked like it. And I was like, well, it's just a green aubergine, so I'll just scan it through as that. And then one day one came through in a bag. And I was like, oh, at least I learned what a courgette was today. What a fun lockdown I'm having. I'm like,
There's something about the fact you thought parsnips were baby carrots, and imagine the look on your
Yeah.
face when a bag of baby carrots comes through the till, and you're like, oh no!
Because I think guaranteed if you tell that in a show, there'll be a couple of people in the room that will think that's true. Guaranteed. So
absolutely.
I think that's a funny thing to say. That whenever you're talking about that you don't get much veg, one thing I thought of whenever you were talking about it was you look at a carrot, like I haven't seen that if it's not chopped in a curry. I don't know what the fuck it is.
I had a bizarre thing when I moved out of my parents' house for the first time. I got to London and I spent like 10 minutes walking around Tesco and then couldn't find it, so walked up to the guy and was like, hi mate, where's the like small broccoli? And the guy was like, what? And I was like, you've only got the big massive ones, where's the like small ones? And he was like, you just break them off. And I was like, ah, fuck. Right.
When I do the deliveries at work, it's a lot of like older people, and they all pronounce broccoli as broccoli. And I don't like it.
don't like that.
Broccoli?
Broccoli. They're like, and could I have a broccoli? And I mean broccoli. Or I'm like, you mean a fluffy carrot? Ah, you can't have them.
That's so, you gotta make a list of like what every vegetable is in like a broccoli is just a fluffy
carrot.
carrot.
Exactly.
Everyone's a
Peppers,
variation.
spicy carrots. Chilies, very spicy carrots.
Potatoes are just Irish carrots.
Yeah.
Bananas are dessert carrots.
Onions are just carrots that make you cry. that sounds like something that like a white girl would put on our Instagram as
Yeah.
like an inspirational, like over
Yeah.
sunset. Onions are just carrots that make you cry, hun.
Hashtag Fitzbin.
Yeah.
Oh man. Remarkably, that is 8:30, so we have come to the end of Doing Bits with Lauren Pattison. It's been lovely. It's been really, really fun. We should probably address it. Occasionally on Doing Bits, we get a little crowd of people who ask, has anyone ever done the fish, which is a sex position? And they overload the live chat with repeated questions about the fish. So I feel obliged to ask, have either of you done the fish?
What is the fish?
I don't know what the fish is.
So I believe the girl is face down, but like flat, rather than
Uh-huh.
on all fours.
Okay, like a plank.
Yes, or like a dead fish.
Oh, yeah, see, clues in the title.
Yeah, and I think somebody said like yeah, Jamali
Isn't a
Malik
fish
said
just a sea carrot?
that'll do for the discussion on the fish. Thanks so much for checking out Doing Bits. If you're on the YouTube, hit subscribe, check out all the other episodes, and there's highlights and stuff on the Instagram page, which if you're watching has probably followed you by now. And if you're on iTunes, drop a little 5-star review. It really helps us spread the word. Drop a comment on all the stuff and just like spread the word if you enjoyed it. If you're into comedy at all, you'll like all the episodes. We've done 19, and normally there's a nice Bengali man and not Aaron McCann, but you know there is an episode with Aaron McCann as well, so check that one out. But thanks for coming along, Lauren. Thank you for joining, Aaron, and thank you for
Thank you.
Thank you.
for covering for the big man Eshaan. And I'll click end stream. Love